Hi everyone, I am Jo Flick with the Montana State Library. I'm your facilitator today. I'm going to be keeping an eye on the chat box and kind of running things in the back end. And Jennie is going to be doing most of our presentation today, although Amelea Kim is going to join us in a minute to talk a little bit about the Economic Development Program and kind of give you an update on that. So good morning everyone. Just a couple little things. We do record these sessions and you can always find the most recent ones in on our Vimeo channel. And if you ever need this link, just let me know. We do have a showcase on the Vimeo channel just for the website chats. So if you miss one, you can always catch up. I do leave them up for a couple of months as long as it feels to me like that information is current, because these are pretty newsy, so they don't stay up there for too long, but you're welcome to go there. And if you are like many Montana librarians are doing right now, working really hard on your professional development, we want to let you know that we are really trying hard to support you in that at the State Library by providing workshops. We were quite busy during the month of April and I've already got quite a few things set up for May. But there are some other online learning opportunities that we're looking at licensing for you. So if there's something in specific that you want or need that has a cost to it, and you can let me know, I'd really appreciate that. I'd love to have your input. We just heard that Coursera, which is the online learning platform, international online learning platform that also has degree programs and certification programs, professional certifications for a number of different things, all kinds of really well-developed courses. And Coursera, a lot of those come with fees, but libraries right now, because you serve the unemployed, are eligible to access Coursera for you and your patrons through the end of September. So that's brand new, and anyone who's enrolled in a course by the end of September will have till the end of the year to complete it. So that is big news. I hope you will take advantage of that opportunity and maybe post that to your website or your on social media, because that is something I think a lot of your patrons might want to take advantage of while they are at home, not able to work, if you have folks in your community like that. So let me know if there are other online learning opportunities you're interested in, because we're looking at those, and get in there and take advantage of that Coursera. I did post to Wired this morning about that. Or you can email me and I'll send you the link. That's all I have, Jennie. It's I think on to you. We've got these things to cover today.
Really good information. Thanks, Jo. And thanks everyone for joining me. I wanted to spend just a little bit of time talking about the federal funding that the State Library has received to help support libraries during the COVID-19 pandemic, and then some of the initiatives that we're talking about. And then, as Jo said, we're going to have Amelea joining us in a little bit to talk about some work that we're doing with a contractor to help us further libraries' roles in serving as economic development hubs in your community. So I'm excited about some of these initiatives that we're talking about. And Jo, if you could add into the chat box a link to the memo that was shared in the commission materials from their April 27th meeting.
Sure, I'll find that.
It gives more detail to some of the content that I'm going to be talking about if you want to refer back to anything. Through the Institute of Museum and Library Services, the State Library was appropriated just over $96,000 in federal funds from the CARES Act, one of the COVID-19 stimulus acts that Congress passed. That money was appropriated to the State Library through the Grants to States program based on a per capita formula. So that's how the amount of funding we received was determined. And the State Library has decided to couple that funding with some remaining funds that we have in our budget as we near the end of this fiscal year. We have about $45,000 in LSTA 19 funds. And then we've identified about $150,000 in our overall budget to put towards a number of different initiatives that we hope will help libraries as you work to serve your patrons during this specific time. Some of the initiatives are pretty straightforward, and some of them are a little bit more involved. One of the ones that's most straightforward is just putting more funding into Montana Library to Go so that more content can be available for serving the increased number of patrons that are using that service. We've seen a significant number of new people signing up for that service and a significant increase in the number of holds on items as people are trying to circulate that kind of e-content while libraries are closed. And if you're interested at all in more information about the impact to Montana Library to Go services during this time, we have a dashboard with more information linked from a new link on the State Library page, a statistics link that's a place where we're compiling those statistics so you can look at the number of new patrons, circulation stats, hold stats, and that kind of information from Montana Library to Go. And I'm just going to drop a link in the chat box to that new page. So if you're interested in that information, you can have access to it there. In order to address that specific need, the Commission approved us spending $96,000. And so Kara is working with Overdrive as well as the Montana Library to Go Selection Committee to make sure that that funding is put to good use. The annual collection budget for Montana Library to Go is right around $250,000. So $96,000 is a pretty nice amount to add to that. I know that other libraries have gotten donations specifically for Montana Library to Go, and some federations are putting in additional year-end funds to Montana Library to Go. So we hope that through some additional funding resources, we're able to add a significant amount of new content to address those needs for patrons. And I also wanted to mention that I've heard from at least one librarian who said that they're not buying print materials right now because the library is closed. And so they're allocating some of that print budget to Montana Library to Go as well. So something that you might want to think about if some of your budget for print materials has gone unspent, or you think you might have limited open hours for the foreseeable future, you might want to think about how you might transition some of that traditional print budget into this kind of e-content. And I would encourage you to visit with Kara a little bit more if that's something that would be of interest to you. One of the other areas of investment is in helping libraries update some of their broadband-related hardware. As you all know, we completed the Gigabit Toolkit analysis not quite a year ago, and that study is now available. We've taken a deep dive into looking at the status of broadband to Montana libraries, not only what broadband is available, but also related hardware. And a number of libraries have significantly outdated hardware, specifically Wi-Fi routers and that kind of technology. And so the Commission budgeted $10,000 for the State Library to work with those libraries that are in greatest need to do what we can to address some of those hardware concerns. And Suzanne Reimer is working with staff and Jim Simmelroth from the Missoula Public Library to help us think about how we can most effectively address those specific kinds of concerns. And I'm going to put another link into the chat box. We've just posted the study as well as a dashboard that compiles a lot of the data that was collected through that study. So if you're interested in looking at the state of broadband at Montana libraries and information about related technology. I've just put that link into the chat box as well. The other two areas of investment that I want to talk a little bit about are a Wi-Fi hotspot lending program and an investment in an online reading program to help support online summer reading. And I'm going to have Amelea talk in a little bit more detail about our work with Read Squared to support that online reading program. Before we get there, I wanted to talk about the Wi-Fi hotspot lending program. Again, the intent is to really address the broadband digital divide that exists in Montana. And as is illustrated by the study that we completed, the lack of broadband is very pronounced. It's not surprising, but the study really brings into sharp focus the needs that our libraries face and the needs that citizens in our communities face. Almost 25% of Montana libraries are the only source of freely available Wi-Fi in their communities. And if the library is closed and has little ability to provide that Wi-Fi access, then there's really no place for freely available Wi-Fi in your communities. And we're seeing situations where people don't have any broadband access. They might not have sufficient broadband access to support both working from home as well as online learning from our Montana students. We're concerned about people who may have recently lost their jobs and maybe have had to cut their internet service as a way to maintain their budgets. They may be applying for jobs and needing to do that kind of work online. We know that broadband is expensive for many, and a lot of people just simply can't afford it, and yet they have these kinds of needs. We know that people are trying to communicate with their healthcare providers through telemedicine, and there's many, many more examples of why this kind of broadband access is so critical. The hotspot lending program is really intended to help us triage this very immediate situation. Of course, long-term, the goal would be that every Montana citizen has access to adequate broadband, but it's going to take years of investment to get us there. This is a tiny little step in our ability to address that need, and it really shows the relevance of libraries at this particular time. The State Library Commission budgeted about $150,000 to launch a hotspot lending program. We're budgeting about half of that funding for every library that's interested to get between 2 and 3 hotspots. And then the Commission is interested in creating 10 demonstration sites where we can procure between 15 and 20 additional hotspots that libraries can lend to help us better understand how people are using these hotspots, the kind of volume of hotspots we need to really have a significant impact in our communities, and what kind of difference this program can make. The hotspots are going to come with 1-year prepaid data plan. So the hotspots themselves can be lent to patrons. They can be used in your libraries or in other locations around your community, whether it's a park or a senior center, a local museum, a grocery store. That's really up to the library to decide. We're trying to make the rollout of this program just as frictionless as possible. We know that you have a lot on your plates right now with trying to offer online services and planning for reopening. So we're putting in place sample policies that you could adopt quickly to help roll out the lending. We're providing technology guidance for how to use the hotspots We're also creating a survey that your patrons can complete to help us evaluate the effectiveness of this overall program. So like I said, we're trying to make the rollout of this program just as seamless as we can. The two providers that we're working with are Verizon and T-Mobile. Verizon has the best coverage overall in the state, and they offer hotspots that are not filtered. So if you're concerned about offering hotspots that have to be filtered, this would be an option that would be available for you. T-Mobile has good coverage in Montana. It's not as widespread as Verizon is, but it is adequate for many libraries. And they do offer an option that it is SBA compliant. So if you're interested in having hotspots that are filtered, that's available for you. The T-Mobile hotspots are less expensive, and so we can procure more of them. So if your library is interested and willing to have a filtered hotspot, we can likely get an additional hotspot for you. We did a survey of libraries prior to taking this proposal to the Network Advisory Council and the Commission last month, and about 60 libraries expressed interest in the program. And we're reaching out to libraries again to confirm with you that you are in fact interested in having some hotspots available to lend in your library, and to confirm whether or not you want a filtered or a non-filtered hotspot. So I know emails have gone out and our consultants are following up with library directors. So please get back in touch with us as quickly as you can, letting us know whether or not you're interested. I know many of you are talking about this option with your boards, so if you have questions, please do let us know, and we're happy to answer those. As soon as we have a clear picture of exactly how many libraries want to participate, we'll be able to determine exactly how many hotspots are available per library. So we're, again, trying to roll this out just as quickly as we can to help this very immediate need that we see in our communities.
So Jenny, a couple of questions in the chat box. One from Beth Boyson, and are there particular criteria for hotspot distribution to the libraries, or is every public library going to be eligible?
We're offering the program to every public library as well as every tribal library that's interested. So every public library can get 2 to 3 hotspots. That depends on the level of interest and how many we can make available. It may actually be a little bit more than that. And then the demonstration sites that I mentioned, what we are doing is pairing data about the libraries that serve populations with the least available broadband, so the lowest available broadband, coupled with the highest percentage of free and reduced hot lunch numbers. That's the metric that's used for the E-rate program. And so we've identified which communities those are and are reaching out to those initial 10 libraries as potential demonstration projects. If some of them aren't interested, we'll just keep going down that list until we fill out those 10 demonstration spots.
And then Kathy in Valier wants to know, how does she know if T-Mobile works in Valier?
We have all of that data, Kathy. So we know which providers serve you, and Suzanne and the consultants, when they're reaching out to you, can tell you which providers are available to you.
Yeah, so ask that question. Any other questions or comments? And Jenny, I'm hearing from some other state libraries that getting your hand on hotspots right now is a little difficult. Some other state library agencies I know are doing similar projects. Are you encountering that as well?
We've been working very closely with T-Mobile and Verizon, thanks to John Kilgour in our office. So we know what's available. We have the ability to get our hands on some very quickly, which is another reason why we're trying to mobilize this effort in rapid response.
Cool.
Any other questions about this option? one of the suggestions that was made when we were discussing the idea with the Network Advisory Council is, we really don't know to what degree people might circulate hotspots. I do know that there are 4 libraries in Montana right now that have hotspots available. Some are circulating to patrons, some are circulating just to organizations within their communities. Lewis and Clark Library in Helena has been doing this program the longest. They've had it going for, gosh, at least a couple of years now. Their hotspots are never on the shelf. They're always checked out. They're always on hold. They're in very, very high demand. They have 4 of them right now. So we anticipate that there will be high demand. But if a library finds that there's not, and another library has need of some, we know that libraries can rely on one another to share these hotspots as needed to make sure that they're being used. Again, I mentioned that the hotspots come with a 1-year prepaid data plan, and after that, it would be up to a library to decide if they wanted to continue that program or not. And it's fine if a library chooses not to continue that program as well, that the data plan would exist for that 1 year. One of the other questions I've gotten is, what happens if a patron just doesn't bring back the hotspot? And there's a pretty quick way to remedy that situation simply by turning off the data plan to that hotspot. The hotspots themselves are free, and so the state library could just get a replacement hotspot with a new data plan. So that's not something the library would need to be concerned about.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to control since they are, they're pretty much useless without a data plan. So, and I'll have to say, I used one of them when my husband was working in Yellowstone and didn't have access to good internet, and so we had one. I've since given it to a library to use, and they're pretty, they rely on cell phone data, and if you have a cell phone tower anywhere near you, they're not great a lot of times, but they're sure better than nothing. And a lot of places they work great. Yep. Yeah, it all depends on how busy your cell towers are, but it certainly gets. I can see where it could really make a difference to individual patrons who are, a rancher who's got forms to file online, all kinds of things. So be interesting to see where this goes, and I'm really glad that we're kind of pushing this forward a little bit.
Me too. This is like I said, it's a step in the right direction. It certainly doesn't solve the long-term problems, but it's going to address a very immediate need. I think it's a great way for libraries to test this program. I've heard from libraries recently who've said, this is something my board was kind of thinking about before all of this hit. And we just didn't have enough information at the time. This is a way for you to roll something out without it having to impact your overall budget for the next year. And like I said, we're trying to put as many resources in place as possible so that you have the information you need to roll the program out quickly and seamlessly.
A library could do a census project out at a farmer's market, or you think of all of the ways that you can kind of take your catalog on the road and at an event at the fair or something. Just a whole bunch of uses just for the library, even if you aren't actively doing a lending program with them. Although it's just going to be great to have the data at the end of the year to see how this impacts what libraries are able to do.
Yep.
Not seeing any more questions come in, so.
Great. The final program that the State Library Commission approved using COVID-19 funds for was rolling out an online reading program specifically to help libraries support online summer reading programs. And we hope to complete our contract with a company called Read Squared just probably in the next couple of days. We went through final contract negotiations yesterday. There's just a couple of little pieces to button up, forms to sign and that kind of thing. And then we should be able to roll that out. The contract that we are approving will allow 40 Montana libraries to have access to the online system. And Amelia's been reaching out to libraries, asking them to express interest in participating. I think we've heard from about 25 so far. So there are some additional seats available if you're interested. And has Amelia joined us?
Yes, I am here, and I am about to drop, I hope you guys can hear me. I'm about to drop the Read Squared interest form
in the chat box. We do hear you, yes.
Yay. Excellent. So right now we have 26 libraries who have expressed interest. And so we definitely have space. So please do sign up if you are interested. We are hoping to have everyone trained and ready to go once we can start training once we get this contract signed. But have everything in place by a June 1st launch date if that's what you're worried about meeting. And yeah, anyone who wants to try it, we are asking for people to commit to using it for 2 years. We'll be looking at data after the first year as well as the second year. And then we'll decide if we want to renew, look at something different, or, you know, decide what we want to do from there. But you know, to try it out, we'd like people to commit to the 2 years, and you don't have to use it just for summer reading. And in case anyone is not as familiar with online reading tracking programs, Read Squared allows you to have both a web browser, web page login, and a phone app login where patrons can register for a reading program, track what they're reading, track the books that they're reading, and you can monitor their activity. It's very customizable. Read Squared actually has a lot of different features and functions, so you can decide what you want to track, if that's pages or minutes or books or whatever. You can make games available to your patrons. You can divide things up according to age groups. People can sign up individually or they can sign up as families. You can make games available. You can create missions for people to finish and customize that to whatever activities your library is doing. So there's a lot that you can do with it, and you can have it be as involved or as not involved as you would like it to be. If you're interested to see how a current Montana library is using it, the Billings Public Library has used Read Squared for the past, maybe 4 or 5 years, and they use it for their summer reading program, their 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten program, and I believe also for a winter reading program. Don't quote me on that, not that last one. I know they use it for sure for the summer reading and for 1,000 books.
I am totally quoting you on that.
No, don't tell Kathy.
That's okay.
I think that's an important point, though. This contract will be a 2-year contract, so it's not like you just have to set it up for the summer reading program. You can use it throughout the year.
Yes, and they have set templates for like 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten, for the CSLP summer reading program, for there's another national, the Big Read, I think, or something like that. They have, for the really big programs, they have set templates that you can just plug in and go. But you can also create an entirely new program for your library and have it be a standalone thing. So if you are interested, please do go ahead and sign up. If you would like some more information, Read Squared actually sent me a recorded demo. It's about 40 minutes long, and it's mostly showing things from the patron perspective. So what the patron will see, the web and the app interface on the phone, and how they can use the different features of the program. I think once we get the contract signed and we can set up training sessions, that will teach you much more about the admin sort of back-end side of things, and like running reports, making sure everything is where it's supposed to be, that sort of thing. But if you're interested in like just the basic demo, going through the different features, going through what patrons will probably see and experience, please let me know. If you want to just go ahead and share your email in the chat box and say like email address, webinar for Read Squared, I can follow up that way as well. And it's about 40 minutes, and it goes through a lot of the features. So that's also a great way for you to say, oh, once the training is available to us, Read Squared has a bunch of tutorials, I think, showing how to use different features. You can sort of make notes when you're watching the demo and say, I want to learn how to do this. This is a feature I want to explore. So yeah. Any other questions about Read Squared or?
Just a couple requests in the chat box. If you could grab those, Amelia, and follow up for information, that's great.
Will do.
Thanks, Amelia. I'm really excited that State Library has the opportunity to really work to support libraries as you're figuring out what your roles are during the COVID-19 pandemic. I guess the other sort of concluding point I want to make around this topic is now's the time for us to really be thinking about what kinds of services we provide pre-pandemic and what they look like now during the pandemic, and what they might look like as we come out of the pandemic. And as we think about what that means to support broadband access, to support online reading programs and other kinds of service models, I think one of the real positives that's going to come out of all of this is the time we spend thinking about these services and continuing to point out the relevance of the work that we do to our communities. So I'm really grateful to have the opportunity to support all of you in these ways, and I hope that they'll make a difference in your libraries. If there's no further questions or comments about this topic, we're going to move on and let Amelia talk a little bit more about the economic development work that we have going on and other initiatives I'm very excited about.
Awesome. Thanks, Jenny. So I mentioned this in the COVID meetup on Wednesday, but I have been meeting with our economic development consultant, Ann Booth, who is wonderful and great. She is based in Malta. And she has been having lots of really great conversations with various economic development organizations across the state. So she's an active member of MEDA, which is the Montana Economic Development Association. And she has also reached out to SBA, which is the Small Business Association, and SBDC, which is the Small Business Development Center. There's a lot of acronyms that I've had to learn. So she's had a lot of really great conversations with all of those different organizations, and especially with COVID, there have been some long-term program ideas that Anne and I have discussed that libraries could participate in, as well as in some sort of more time-sensitive and immediate economic development opportunities that libraries could participate in. So there are 4 of these that I'd like to go through, and we are actively looking for libraries who would like to volunteer and try this out with us. These are sort of new and developing, and a lot of things might be sort of to be determined, but we would love to have libraries be part of that process so that we can make sure this is a good fit for both libraries and for these partners and for the small businesses and economic development people in your communities. So the first program I wanted to talk about was the idea of a business resource center in the library. So this would be similar to how some of you have maybe an Alzheimer's corner or a health information corner, having an up-to-date dedicated space for small businesses and economic development resources in the library. So the main tasks associated with this would be finding space to put this, finding partners locally and statewide to help provide information in your center, keeping the center updated, and then helping connect patrons further once they come in and look at what you have and have more questions. So some things that Anne and I are hoping to provide are resources from the Small Business Association, SBA, as well as information from SBDC, as well as information from the Department of Labor of Information, and other things that Anne receives that would be great to pass along. We also thought about providing posters and branding to make it a recognizable thing across the state, but we're also still looking into other resources that might be available. So this one isn't super time sensitive, and this could be definitely an ongoing developing project, and who knows what areas it could go into depending on your community. So that's one opportunity. Another opportunity is, this one is a little bit more time sensitive, is helping to facilitate business webinars for the public. So this would be in partnership with the Small Business Association. And this is specifically trying to target those who do not have internet access. SBA has been very active in working with local banks to provide guidance and information to small business owners, and I think they've done a really great job of that, but they have had a really hard time reaching people who don't have internet access, who don't check social media, who don't use email and all of those things. So they are hoping to start a webinar series to talk about the CARES Act, to talk about COVID-19 aid programs, and provide assistance to this group. So the main tasks for this would be finding a space in your library and creating a webinar viewing space for those individuals to come and get this information. This would of course still be with social distancing precautions in place, but setting that up so that people could come and view these webinars. This would also require coordination with the SBA outreach staff. They themselves, I believe, are still scheduling these webinars and thinking about what they're going to look like. But then, in addition to providing the space, also providing and managing the technology and equipment to allow viewers to watch the webinar, ask questions, et cetera, et cetera. And then, also publicizing the opportunity to the public, and trying to reach those people who don't have internet access. So this one is...
Amelia, this is Joe. I just wondering, so you're kind of envisioning these as an actual program at the library that a group of people would come to?
Unclear if it would be a group or maybe even just a couple of people, but somehow just trying to connect.
But live, but a live
yes.
session and interaction. Okay.
Yes.
Just wanted to be clear about that.
Yeah. And I think SBA, again, they haven't finished scheduling these webinars, but they are hoping to do this now, especially because I think CARES Act funds and COVID aid funds are now starting to get released. They are really trying to reach these people to make sure that they can get the help that they need. So if you are interested in this, please do let me know. You don't have to commit right away. We can definitely give you more information and talk through any concerns that you might have. But please do email me or put your email in the chat box and we can go from there. Another program is with the Small Business Development Center, and this is to help with their advisory program. So SBDC has advisors and consultants that can meet with business owners to, again, connect them, help them troubleshoot, and get them the help they need with CARES Act funds and COVID-19 decisions, and also just more generally with maintaining and running their small business. So a lot of the SBDC advisors are doing these things virtually. And again, people who don't have internet are unable to connect with an advisor, and they also don't have space to do this. So this program in a library would mean providing a confidential private space, physical space, and or a computer for a patron and the SBDC consultant to meet virtually so that they could review documents, discuss sensitive information together, and help make decisions on what best to do going forward in COVID times. Additionally, this would also require coordinating with the advisor to allow for a system that can have these spaces be scheduled out, because it is really important that they have enough time to talk through all of the topics that they want to address. This one is also time sensitive. Again, SBDC, I think, has been working with local organizations, and they've been easily been able to reach those who are connected, but those who are not connected, they are really looking to try and reach. So similar to the webinar facilitation, you're providing a physical space again. I think just for one person in this case, and the technology if they need that to meet with a consultant virtually. So yes, this is going to be on a rolling basis as well, because I think they've already started these kinds of consultations, but they are looking to expand their reach. And then the last idea is providing mobile printing services for people in your community. And there have been a couple of libraries that I've heard from, one in Oklahoma, I believe, and a couple other places where they have done this to great success in their own communities. So the software of choice seems to be Printer On. I think it's just printeron.com. And people can connect to Printer On to a printer using Printer On in your library and send print jobs through. And then you can sort of, there were varying ways that libraries did this. Some people had like a pickup area and put things into envelopes and marked people's names. Some people slid it under the door of their library to the other person on the other side. But especially now as people are filing for aid and assistance, some stuff can be done online, but some stuff still needs a physical record, and they might need to do printing and copies and things like that. So this one I think would be less facilitated by us, but more as just a suggestion to consider providing this service to small businesses in your community, and seeing if that would work. So please let me know if you have any questions on any of these ideas. Again, we are actively looking for libraries to volunteer and participate. Please reach out to me, and then Anne and I can follow up and give you some more information. Any questions about anything?
Thanks for that fantastic summary, Amelia. Any questions for Amelia? Well, again, I want to thank all of you for joining us. There's been lots of great information today. I hope this is useful for you. I want to confirm our next COVID check-in. It's going to be again on Wednesday. Joe and Amelia, is that correct?
Yes, and I will be putting the Aspen link up today, hopefully with the Zoom link in the Aspen event page.
Okay.
You do get CE credit for that event as well, since it's been very learning. It's been a lot of learning going on at the COVID meetups. If you haven't been to those on Wednesday afternoons, they're great. And there is a comment in the chat box from Beth Boyson from Bozeman thanking you, Jenny, and nicely done on spending those CARES funds so wisely. Those are good investments, she says.
Thanks, Beth. I appreciate that.
And with that, I'm going to go ahead and stop our recording. Let me see.